All right. Welcome. Again, this is Father Brendan Helms, priest in charge at St. Monica's Anglican Church. I'm here with Father Jarrod Dillon, as we've been over the last few weeks on this series of looking at the question of what is an Anglo Catholic, and as a core part of that, interviewing different individuals, hearing some of their story and what brought them to, again, this position of Anglo Catholicism. Welcome, Father Dillon.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. I know, we've been in the works on this for trying to get this scheduled for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So again, we'll just kick it off over to you, and would love to hear just kind of all of your journey. Again, I know parts of it. Certainly, I'm sure not all of it, as to what has brought you to where you are today in the faith.
Yeah. Thank you. I've been an Anglo Catholic my whole life, even though I was Roman Catholic for many of the years that I celebrated that faith, because I was baptized in the Episcopal Church when I was 14. And the Episcopal Church that I went to wasn't Anglo Catholic for and the music was amazing. And I always loved the Anglo Catholic way of celebrating the ancient Mass. And when I became a teenager, when I got to know a little bit more about the faith, I wanted to be part of a church that was much bigger than my small little Episcopal church. And so I converted to Roman Catholicism. And I was Roman Catholic for 25 years. And so that's how I lived out. So maybe that's the best way of describing, well, what's the difference between Roman Catholic and Anglo Catholic? An Anglo Catholic is someone who is just as Catholic as anyone else. I mean, they don't, the Roman Catholics don't have a monopoly on the word Catholic. It just means universal, and what it really means to me is that the way that we celebrate the faith is in union with how it's always been celebrated throughout all of history. And so during the pandemic, like most people, they kind of reevaluated their life and thought, where am I going? What am I doing? And there was the Great Resignation, and I happened to be part of that, which is I quit my job in the Catholic Church being an educator and sought ordination, returning back to my Anglican heritage,
And just to
primarily because
clarify, so in your position within your Roman Catholic parish, you were not clergy. You were a layman who was. What were your responsibilities with that primarily?
yeah. So for 20 years I was an RCIA director,
Oh,
and that also coincides with being a director of religious education. So I dealt with educating both youth and adults, and so yeah, that was some of the best formative years of my life. That to be able to the way you really learn the faith is by teaching it, and especially if you really want to learn the faith, you got to teach it to children because they ask questions like that doesn't make sense, and you're like, you're right, it doesn't make sense. I better go back and read some more stuff about it. Um, so that's yeah. So my time in the Roman Church was I was a lay person, and then yeah. I've been a priest now for is it 3 years? We were ordained on the same day, right?
that's correct. Yeah, we
So
were
yeah.
made. I think, if I remember correctly, I think you were made a deacon about 5 minutes before me, and then I think I could be wrong, but I think for priestly ordination, I think it was flipped, but I might be. I
No,
can't.
it was
It
because
was
you made
okay.
a big deal about the deacon thing, and I thought, oh, I hope I get to be it's like Jacob and Esau, like when who comes out of the womb first, but.
So what was it, outside of COVID, what was it that kind of that transition? I mean, obviously there's a difference between Roman Catholics and Anglo Catholics. What was it that brought about that shift for you?
Yeah. When I converted to Roman Catholicism, it was a different kind of Catholicism that we have today. So it was a Vatican II. Like I converted to Catholicism in 1998, and so this was the liturgy was not always done in the proper way. The catechism wasn't always really well. And what I found over my career as being a Roman Catholic is that you'll never be accepted in the Roman Catholic Church if you're a convert. Even if you teach the faith for 20 years, it's really easy just to be like, well, you don't really know what you're talking about because you're a convert. And then, on the other hand, they do celebrate you too, like you're the greatest person in the world because you've converted to Catholicism, and they're like, "Oh, let me put you on a book or something." But for me, what I discerned is that many of the ways in which the teachings were presented to me and the ways in which I taught those things to others really wasn't what Catholicism is. Was a kind of a way to make it more palatable to Americans and especially to Protestants, to people who had more Protestant thinking. And so I was always reassured that even though I didn't have a really robust sense of what the papacy is, even when I was a Roman Catholic, I never really believed in the infallibility of the Pope in the way that I think that, and I was always told by my professors and things that actually there's a more broad way of understanding it. But now there's this kind of traditionalist backlash
Right.
against the Vatican II Church. And what I'm finding is those people are more likely to just tell you, no, you know, what you're saying is wrong. And so it just kind of became a discernment for me that I actually don't like the part of the difference between being an Anglo Catholic and a Roman Catholic. I think the kind of it's very much involved in what your belief is about the Pope. You know, I just happen to think that the Pope shouldn't pick every bishop for every diocese. Like I don't think the Pope should make every decision about every local church. And after Vatican II, that was kind of accepted. Like you're right. You know, there was this in that kind of system, I can kind of thrive. But um, yeah, I don't know if that makes
You
sense at
know
all.
what
But
I mean, what I hear you saying is, all right, uh, you had this paradigm of what Roman Catholicism was, and if you're like, oh, well, if this is what it is, I'm good. But then as you look to study and interacted with more what we would call traditional Roman Catholics who are going to look behind Vatican II historically, they're like, wait a minute, no, this is not historically what Roman dogma has endorsed. You're like, wait a minute, well, if that's the case, then I can't be Roman Catholic, at least in good conscience, I would assume.
that's right. And you know the it's not that you know I think that one time I gave a talk to high school students, and I was to represent the Roman Catholic Church, and you know, and to high schoolers, and there was like a field day of different clergy that were there and stuff, and I was trying to figure out like well I wanted to say certain things of what made Catholicism different than all of the other denominations, but there was an Orthodox guy there too, so we had a lot of in common with the tradition. I think that really the unique thing about Roman Catholicism is the Pope. And I know that, like during the last papacy, a lot of my Catholic friends found out that they didn't really believe in the Pope having all the power too. It seems because they were critical of the Pope, and I welcome that because that's the kind of that's really what I think the Anglican tradition represents is a suspicion towards the use of the papal power within our political world and within you know within the kind of the within the polis of men.
Mhm.
And so um now I know that the new pope everyone seems to like him, and so maybe those types of arguments will go away because they'll like this one, but they at least I think have an appreciation for those of us who say yeah I think that the faith is the faith, and I can certainly say that the Pope has a very important role in being the head of the Western Church, and that when there is a disputed question, the Pope should probably be the one to be the last area of resolving that. But to go back to kind of like well, what animated me, uh, these are kind of feelings that I've had my entire career as a Roman Catholic. And I think that for those people who are Roman Catholic who are listening, they'll probably say, well, you're just Roman Catholic, you know, you just don't seem to like that particular pope or whatever. That's not the case. It's really it's hard to describe kind of like the subtle differences between how I live my life as an Anglo Catholic priest and how, like for instance, a Roman Catholic priest would live their life. There's a lot of overlap, and so a lot of because of Vatican II, I think it's hard to find the difference between the Anglican Catholic and the Roman Catholic because they do theirs in English now. We were a big proponent of doing the liturgy in English. That's what really a hallmark of what it means to be an Anglo Catholic is to keep the traditional faith, but to do it in English. Well, now almost all Roman Catholic churches do it in English, so it's like you guys are kind of the same, but um, you know, yeah.